All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Brotherly Love in the District. Tristan here, along with Jacob. And Jacob, you want to tell them what we're going to get into?
Yeah, so in terms of the NFL, when we're talk about week 3 and 4, not really looking forward to that. Going on into baseball, the playoffs are growing near and near, and obviously we got to talk about the man of the league, Aaron Judge, and then finally into the NHL. It's preseason, so let's get right into it. And
Hang on, real quick. First, before we get into it, so the previous episode, I realized I was informed that there's a bit of it where it is sped up. So by the time this comes out, it should be fixed. But I'm going to go back and redo that and put that back out so that it's normal. Just wanted to put that out there. I did get informed that it was messed up. So I'm going to fix that and then put it back out so that it is regular. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that episode normally, then it will be done. So it should be out before this one. So I should have them fixed. But now we will talk about this week where the Eagles take down the Commanders in a dominating 24-8 win in Washington.
This is a shameful performance on every single level of this organization, starting at the top. Nothing will ever get fixed unless Dan Schneider is gone, because we've never done this correctly. Typically, it should go, the owner hires a proper GM. The GM brings in a coach, and the coach picks the quarterback. The coach picks the quarterback, and the GM actually does what he's meant to do, be the football guy and hire free agents. We don't do that. We are at another dead end with this franchise because Ron Rivera, Jay Gruden has a better win percentage than Ron Rivera, and it's Ron Rivera's third year, and we've gone backwards. That is simply not acceptable. This fan base, we are tired of going into games completely. We looked like we get outperformed every single time. It looked like we get out-coached, out-schemed. We get punched in the mouth every single time in the first half. The only time we've ever scored a first drive touchdown in a few years was the game against Jacksonville. And I don't understand why Ron Rivera expects anything less when we lost two of our best offensive linemen in Eric Flowers and Brandon Sheriff, yet we're so shocked that it's performing like shit. It's baffling. And then in terms of our defense, we didn't touch the linebacker room once. It's the same people, and they're not good. Cole Holcomb isn't that guy. Jamin Davis shows promise in some areas, but looking back on it, is he a first-round talent? No. We drafted him off of his physical gifts. And, who would have thought that picking up our secondary depth the day after we do the 53-man rosters off of waivers was a bad idea? Who would have thought that? This roster is almost the exact same. We brought in a few new signings, but it's still not good. And going onto the stadium, it's the worst stadium in the league. They had another sewer leakage. That is unbelievably, it's so baffling that we have such an awful stadium and it's only like 20 years old. And I am so pissed at the ownership, at the front office, because they've deteriorated this franchise down to the point where FedEx Field is a second home for pretty much every single franchise in the league.
There was a lot of green.
We saw that, and they have the stupid no leaning on the railing signs for the tunnel for what happened last year. Instead of putting the signs up, actually fix the problem to the point where fans can actually lean on the fucking railings. I am just so mad at the entire coaching staff because, first off, Ron Rivera, it just seems like he's deflecting the blame and not really showing any emotion. We just had an embarrassing loss. Show you care. Try and light a fire under your players' butts. And Jay Gruden wasn't the perfect coach, but I do think we owe him somewhat of an apology. At least he was always straightforward at the answers you asked him. He didn't deflect blame. He didn't just kind of give nonchalant answers that don't really actually answer the question. Ron Rivera needs to step up. And with Scott Turner, I have no clue team that is notorious for blitzing. And from what we saw last week, where our offensive line really struggled, I don't understand why we're still running 7-step drops. It should be 3-step drop, ball out. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the max you should be holding the ball. I just don't understand. And for me, the problem isn't Carson Wentz. Yes, he could have had a better pocket presence, but you simply cannot expect to win a football game giving up 9 sacks. 6 came in the first half.
4 of them came in the first quarter.
Yeah, that is one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen from an offensive line that on paper should be better, but knowing us, it's not going to be. It is. I don't know what to say, Tristan. It is. I knew they were going to lose, but things seem so worse. I think this is possibly the last year for the coaching staff if we don't see any true improvement, because it's the third year and we've gone backwards. We haven't had a single winning season, and we seem to be in a worse position with what should be a better roster.
Now, I will say, so this episode is going to be I think we both have a lot of like analytical stuff, and it's going to be fun to talk about.
I do.
This is going to be a very nerdy episode for people who want to get into it. Now, just looking at the basis, I think Wentz. Okay, so all those sacks, like you said, 9 sacks, not entirely on the offensive line. It was a mix of Wentz and the offensive line. Wentz needs to learn to check it down. There were multiple plays where he could have just threw it to McKissick or Gibson and avoided a sack there, but he likes to play hero ball, especially at the end when, you guys are getting killed, getting dominated on every facet.
Scott Turner needs to understand that. And like starting off the game, you need to start running plays with 2 or 3-step drops, and you get the ball out quite fast. For one thing, it builds momentum throughout the game, and that's something we always struggle with. We should not be running 7-step drops in the first drive of the game when we know our offensive line isn't as a sure thing as we thought it was.
Now, I missed you for a little bit earlier when you were talking about who were you saying was notorious for blitzing?
The Eagles.
You're not going to like this. The Eagles, most of those sacks came on 4-man rushes.
Yeah, 4-man rushes. We know their strength is in their front.
They don't like to blitz. They haven't been blitzing quite a bit. They blitzed a lot. They didn't even blitz that much with Schwartz, but so they didn't blitz that much with Schwartz, and just to show how little they blitz, Gannon has blitzed even less. So the Eagles don't blitz as much as
what I meant by blitz is they have like a strong pass rush. I kind of lob in.
They did
blitz and pass rush.
They did do some 5-man fronts.
They didn't do all out blitzes.
But so we mentioned the 9 sacks, 17 quarterback hits. Carson Wentz took a beating as a whole, and you know that he was hitting that ice bath hard this week.
Yeah, and people saying that, Carson Wentz is the problem. Yes, he could have had a better pocket presence, but Heineke or Howell would have done worse, because one thing they'll never be able to do is make the same throws Carson Wentz has. You cannot expect to win. It doesn't matter the quarterback you have with 17 quarterback hits and 9 quarterback sacks. Yes, it could have been better, but bringing in a different quarterback is not the answer. That makes me kind of mad with this fan base. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz is 6th in yards in the entire league, 7 touchdowns, the 5 turnovers. Some of them were due to a collapsing pocket, but that still could be better.
And like I said earlier, it wasn't entirely on the offensive line. Carson Wentz was holding the ball for 3.3, 3.4 seconds. That's way too long.
Yeah, that is not acceptable.
You want the ball out in no more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's not acceptable from the offensive coordinator calling the plays as well as Carson Wentz.
Now, the Eagles secondary was also balling as a whole. But I just want to, so Brandon Graham, NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Brandon Graham had 2.5 sacks in that game and 5 quarterback hits. Brandon Graham went off, which is huge coming off of that Achilles. So he looked good. Then I just wanted to, on the defense. Oh, and then, so you know how we talk about those linebackers being like miserable? This this is the first season that the Eagles like actually have decent linebackers. TJ Edwards. So the Eagles just drafted Nakobe Dean, and one of the things is, when's Nakobe Dean going to get on the field? The issue there is he has nowhere to go. Kaiser White is playing really well. The Eagles struggle with those one season wonders, not really wonders, but those one season contracts like they had with, who's the guy that they got last season from the Eric Wilson from the Vikings. He didn't work out. They had one before that from the Broncos that didn't work out. And but this year they got Kaiser White on a 1-year contract from the Chargers. He's playing coverage well, but TJ Edwards is flying all over the place. An undrafted free agent from Wisconsin. He the type of game he is playing right now for him is for an undrafted rookie is insane. He, just to show how good he's playing. So he runs about a 4.8 40. Not the fastest guy, not the best in coverage. If you were to look at him, he is a downhill linebacker. And he's getting put in on one linebacker sets or 5-man fronts. And he's playing the majority of those snaps. Not Kaiser White, who is meant for speed and meant for coverage. TJ Edwards on those. He had a sack and 2 quarterback hits and led the team with 10 total tackles in this game. The secondary, like I said, played really well. I'd say in general, I think Jonathan Gannon has shown trust in this team in his defense, as you've seen, especially in this game. The secondary, Darius Slay, he has taken a hold of that secondary. James Bradbury was a huge piece to add on the other side, and even Avonte Maddox played pretty well against Terry McLaurin when they were moving him around. So overall, the secondary played well. Obviously the linebackers were playing well.
Your offensive line did pretty good.
Yeah, I was still going off of the whole Washington offense, Eagles defense as of right now, just to stay on the.
I mean, I will give a little bit of credit. Terry McLaurin had a decent game. This came a lot in the end of the third and the fourth quarter. He had 6 receptions for 102 yards, which shows
he didn't do much in the first half.
Yeah, we need to be getting him involved a lot earlier. And I just think that, Scott Turner, like I said before, he needs to be running 2 and 3 step drops where you get the ball out quite fast to not only get those early yardage, but to gain momentum. You cannot start off the games. It typically doesn't work of trying to get these home run plays. And the fact that right now we can't really get an offensive or a running attack going because Antonio Gibson, he's a great gadget guy, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to run the ball 20 to 30 times a game. And he's shown that he can't really get a lot of good yards. When Brian Robinson gets back, it'll really help our offense because he's a better natural runner. But our offense, we need to look at the fact that our offensive line is struggling and kind of change some of the things because we have guys who can get yards after the catch. Dotson, Samuel, McLaurin, McKissick, Gibson can all catch the ball underneath and get you yards. It's not like this is a tough thing. We should be looking and scheming that the Cowboys, I'm pretty sure they're top 5 or they might even lead the league in sacks. We need to look at that. Okay, quick throws, Wentz, get the ball out early so that we can establish ourselves early in the game, which is something we struggle to do.
If the Eagles didn't lead the league in sacks going into this game, they definitely
do.
9 in a single game is insane. Like you said, you can't expect to
even do good.
Yeah. Oh, I need teams. So yeah, you can't expect to win a game, let alone have a decent, even have a chance when you're getting sacked 9 times. So that's passing. You guys lead the league in getting sacked. Mm-hmm. Actually, you're tied with the Bengals, which makes complete sense. But
Dallas is 1, Phillies 2.
Dallas has more sacks than the Eagles.
I think.
By 1 sack.
Yeah.
They have 13. We have 12. So But yeah, the overall your offensive line, it was hurting. I mean, there's nothing more you can really do there. The center is young. Your offensive line is hurting. Carson
Tim
Wentz didn't help him
Cosme
out.
didn't really make any adjustments, and he was getting beat the entire game.
The I Those offensive linemen are sitting there like yelling at Carson Wentz because getting sacked makes everyone look bad, not just the quarterback, but the lineman, even if
Yeah, but
the
they
line
cannot.
held their guys. Yeah,
They
you can't expect to hold them for 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah, but you cannot expect Carson Wentz to do anything with a rapidly collapsing pocket. It was ultimately a team loss, but I'd put more of it on the offensive line than I would Carson Wentz. I mean, it is simply unacceptable to give up 9 sacks. Even if yes, Carson Wentz could have thrown the ball out quicker, but the pocket really wasn't, it was non-existent for most of the game, apart from a few drives where we were able to get over the field and ultimately get a touchdown. That shows the potential our offense has, but the problem is getting that going and finding the right play calling, which Scott Turner needs to do and needs to realize that we need to get the ball out quick. Look West Coast system. Look at Bill Wash's stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
But yeah, I mean your offense just struggled as a whole. There was nothing you guys could do. You got your garbage time touchdown. Switching sides of the ball.
Before I go to the negatives, I took 2 positives. Jamin Davis had 2 sacks, so it shows that he could be good in blitzing, but we don't have anyone to plug in over the middle. I mean, even when we have Cam Curl back and we should be running 3 safety sets, we still have a hole in our linebacker group because it's non-existent. Holcomb isn't that guy. We probably should be trying to see if David Mayo can do any better. But Benjamin St. Juice actually had a good game, putting him to the outside. So I think that's
he had a decent game. I don't think he
and
terrible.
Kendall Fuller has been successful as a nickel cornerback playing slot. So I think we should maybe try and do that a little bit more. And hopefully William Jackson can come back and just.
Yeah, I didn't realize how hurt your secondary was. Cam Curl was just coming back off an injury.
Yeah.
St. Juice played well, but he's still young. Kendall Fuller was the number 1 and he shouldn't be. Then William Jackson was out.
Isn't his game.
Yeah, exactly. William Jackson was out. So your secondary was hurting. Your linebacking core just is terrible.
It's the worst in the league.
Yeah, I think that's really, there's no way to sugarcoat it. We try to keep it as honest as we can on here, and the Washington linebacking core.
Yeah, I simply cannot think of a worse group in the league because we're trying to run this archaic system of running 2 linebackers, and it just isn't working at all. And I'm pretty sure we have
Deron Payne and
John Fennell, Montez Webb.
John Allen. They shut down the run up the middle.
That's actually another positive. We showed improvement in terms of the run defense. Jamin Davis, I think, helped with that a little bit, but obviously it wasn't enough because they still got yards, and obviously we can't really rely on our secondary as it stands because our depth guys are guys that were claimed off of waivers, and that is simply not a good idea. I don't understand. I don't know how anyone could be shocked that our secondary sucks after even one of our players gets hurt, because you cannot expect to sign waiver guys and have them be good depth pieces. That is something you need to do in the offseason. We need to let Martin Mayhew, our GM, do what he's paid to do, be the football guy. We should be giving him roster control. Even if Rivera is around next season, he needs to relinquish roster control. Yes, but he should be able to, in terms of quarterback, you should obviously try and work with the GM with that, as well as make sure the guys converting to your scheme isn't too much of a jump. But I just think there's so many things we need to be doing better at all levels of the organization. I just feel we're going towards another dead end.
I think the defense ultimately was outmatched here. Now,
yeah,
I think the Eagles offense looks good. Now, I do want to say this. I think I've seen a lot lately now that we're a couple games in, everyone's trying to get on that Eagles hate bus where they're like, oh, the Eagles suck. Like, Detroit is a decent team. They're third in the league in scoring, the Detroit
Yeah,
overall. Their offense is
they have a great offense.
yeah. So just want to throw that out there. The Vikings, I'm not convinced are terrible yet.
I still think they're a decent team.
Yeah, they're still a decent team. I think the Commanders were the worst team out of the three that they have played so far.
I can't argue with that. I really can't. Looking at how we're coached, you cannot say that we're better than any of those teams.
So just as a broad overview, everyone who's like saying, oh, the Eagles are like, it's mostly other fans. Obviously, Eagles fans right now are flying high. But
I think the term is insufferable.
But the overall, this is what the Eagles are going to be looking at all season because they have one of the easiest schedules in the league. I believe it's third easiest in the league. So this is what they're looking at all season, which if you look back to now, I'm not trying to say they're going to win the Super Bowl here, but if you look back to their Super Bowl year, again, they had one of the easiest schedules in the league. They won 10 straight games. They ended up losing to Seattle. They went 13-3. Everyone's like, oh, well, what's going to happen now that they're in the playoffs playing actual teams? So that's just a broad overview. Yes, they look good now and they may be playing bad teams, but you also got to remember these other teams also got good over the offseason. The Lions, the Vikings, Jacksonville looks really good, which we'll talk about in a little bit as we look forward in a little bit later in this episode. But just talking about the offense, first off, Jalen Hurts had an amazing game. He went 22 for 35 with 340 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and him and Devontae Smith were on the same page all together. The thing I liked about it was Jalen Hurts made the smart passes. He missed a couple here and there. I will be honest. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. He missed a couple passes, maybe 3 or 4, but for the most part, he was on his game and he played really well and just exposed the Commanders defense for what it was and made sure to expose the holes that they had. So he had a really good game. And then another thing is Jalen Hurts, he has been rushing less and less and less in each game, which is also a really big positive. So in game 1, he ran the ball 17 times. Game 2, he ran it 11. This game, he only ran it 9. So he's dropping down significantly in each game. So that should be a good that's a good sign for Jalen Hurts because you obviously don't want your quarterback running a ton. And he's been distributing the ball well. In that first game, it looked like it was just going to be the AJ Brown show. But in each game, Quez Watkins had a decent game against the Vikings.
Smith had an amazing game.
Smith had a big game this time. They're distributing the ball. Dallas Goedert got a touchdown this week. So, he's distributing the ball more, playing well as a whole. And just one other tidbit on Jalen Hurts. Now, I don't like these, random stats that make someone look 10 times better than they are. But I just think that this is an interesting one just because the Eagles have had dual threat quarterbacks like Mike Vick and Jalen Hurts. So
even McNabb to a certain extent,
McNabb
could run when he needed.
He was kind of a dual threat quarterback, not as much as Vick and Hurts, but a little bit.
Cunningham.
Randall Cunningham, yeah, he was just about one that I was.
But his career was cut short with the Eagles.
But so I don't like these random stats, but I think this is a decent one just because they have quarterbacks comparable to Jalen Hurts. He has the highest all-purpose yards through the first 3 games of any quarterback in Eagles history. So that's passing and rushing. He has the most yards altogether, which I don't like that it's so specific about the first 3 games, but again, I just think it's something to note, showing that he really has come out and he's shown that he is ready to be the man in.
Yeah, and I think it's really shown that this offense is rather potent, and yet I think people are starting to like one of the big problems they have is with the Eagles they take their foot off the gas, but they haven't really needed,
Yeah.
besides the Lions game to a certain extent, they haven't really needed to keep
Worry about
like,
scoring in the second half, which
yeah,
I still that does worry me a little bit because they haven't scored. I think they may have scored in the second half the against the Lions, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll pull up their previous
I just
schedule here.
realized this, but the Eagles scored all 24 of their points in the second quarter.
Yeah, but uh, that does scare me a little bit that the Eagles haven't been able to produce offense in the second half. Granted, it hasn't been an issue, but like when they played, yeah, they didn't score any second half points against the Vikings. And when they played the Vikings, when the Vikings got that blocked field goal, I got a little bit worried there for a second. And okay, week 1 against the Lions, they scored 14 third quarter points. They went 24 in the second quarter and 14 in the third quarter. So again, didn't really need to worry about it, but still would like to see some offense in the second half.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it considering you have an easier schedule. And I think if you guys really wanted to, you could have scored in the second half of our game. Even without your run game really getting going, I think
Yeah,
that'll
they didn't.
also help
I
with
was just about
points.
to talk about that.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine. And obviously, Jalen Hurts is going to have the ability to run in his back pocket. You guys have you have many options to fall back on in terms of your offense because you have good running backs that can get great blocking. You have a good set of wide receivers and you have a good tight end. So I wouldn't be too worried about the whole scoring thing. I mean,
I don't think it's an issue yet because we haven't
yeah,
had to worry about it.
yeah.
Once we start getting into closer games, then I'll be worried.
Then I think you guys should try and answer that problem now, even though I don't think it's much of a problem. Solve it now before you start getting into the real test games per se. But yeah, I think there's very little Eagles fans really need to worry about. And I think your defense is going to get another test next week in the Jags, but I think ultimately it's another game to build your confidence that you should ultimately win. I know the Jags have actually been playing pretty decent since their loss to us, but you are still the better team and it's still a game that you should ultimately win. And it's the games you need to win, considering you may be, if you, I think you'll win the division, but say you're not, wild card is always going to be close. So it's important to get those wins.
Just to finish up on the offense, the rushing game couldn't get going really. I think Daron Payne and John Allen had a really good game in the middle.
Yeah, they're really
run.
good. They're really good run defense.
They had a good game stuffing the run. Miles Sanders had 46 yards, only averaged 3.1, and that's rough for him, being that he's usually up there between 5 and 6 yards.
Yeah, that's good enough. Antonio Gibson had 0.1 more yards per carry than Miles Sanders did. So that I will give credit to the defense and the coaching that okay, our run defense is actually improved.
So the run couldn't get going, but just to finish it off, I wanted to talk about the game that Devontae Smith had. Oh my gosh. Just really so that one play, the one specific play, the throw to the sideline. Ron Rivera should have challenged that
immediately.
Like, I think that would
have been overturned because you could see he was still bobbling it. It would have been overturned. You need to throw that immediately.
So there was talk that apparently he got his right foot down twice, but I don't think that's counting it as a catch because you have to get 2 feet down. But
yeah, and
I don't know if
he still didn't have full control, so it would have been overturned, but it wasn't.
Ron Rivera should have gotten that out immediately. I think that's also an issue with the people up, sitting in the booth, because they're the ones who confirm it. Like, hey, yeah, you should challenge that, or no, leave it be. I think it won't do anything. So I think there was a little bit of latency there from them, and I think that also created an issue. So that should have been challenged immediately. But the other play I wanted to talk about was the deep
when one of our defenders got mossed.
Not one, but two. because he
Yeah,
went up
two
on two of
guys
them.
got mossed. I mean, I think there was actually two separate mosses in that game. I don't know what our corners were doing, but
Yeah, AJ Brown also mossed someone.
they were playing
Took
like
the ball
they
right
were,
out of his hands.
yeah, they were playing like they were 5'3".
I did like that they took a couple more shots in this game. Quez Watkins, I think, got 2 targets deep. AJ Brown got a target deep. I think Devontae Smith had 2 deep targets. So they took a lot of shots in this game, which I liked, especially since the Commanders secondary was struggling. But yeah, that play where Devontae Smith went up, when you are 6'1" and maybe 170 pounds, that's the same I weigh. I am 5'10". Like, I'm 3 inches shorter than this guy, and we weigh the same. But you should not be doing that on 2 NFL corners.
That's
insane.
bad. That's really bad.
So Devontae Smith was a man in this game. Dallas Goedert had a nice screen touchdown. Everyone really got involved. A lot of people had a target. Even our second and third string tight ends were getting targets. Did you see
Grant Calcaterra had a 40-yard reception?
Did you see him afterwards? He was so pumped. I mean, I'm sure the feeling of getting your first reception being that for that much is huge, but
I'll be honest with you, I never heard of that guy up until that
point. I think
point.
he was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I'm like, who on earth is this? We're giving up 40-yard receptions to your third stringers. What is this?
He's a rookie this season. I think he's out of Southern Methodist. He's a rookie. I think he's a 5th or 6th round pick. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the Batman cape. Did you see that come out? I just think I love when the teams have fun like that on the sidelines and stuff. Like in college, they have the turnover chains and everything. I think that's really cool to see that they have the Batmans, which, if you guys didn't hear, Darius Slay said in an interview or a press conference, they asked, about the receivers, and he just goes, we got a bunch of Batmans out there. AJ Brown is swole Batman. You got Devontae Smith, who's skinny Batman, and Quez is fast Batman. It's like no Robins. So that's where that originated. And I think the Batman cape just adds a little bit more fun to the game, which ultimately it is a game for these.
It's fun, but it's not fun when it's against us.
Oh yeah, but that's going to be a thing now in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
The Batman cape. So, and I was just listening to Jason Kelsey's podcast, and he said next time they score on a screen, he's going over, getting the cape, and he's being Fat Man. So I think it just adds an element of fun to the game. So ultimately, dominant win by the Eagles. Not really much you can complain about for the Eagles. Commanders, on the other hand, a lot to work on.
As you saw.
Yeah, which we start into next week. We'll start with the Commanders game because, you guys got a division rival coming up with.
I'm going to be honest, this is a game we should win, but I do not have trust in us. I do not think we're going to win this because if we look at what happened last week, 9 sacks, and we're facing the team who has Micah Parsons, Leighton Vander Esch. They lead the league in sacks, and I just don't think we're going to win. I want to say that, we're going to learn from our mistakes and all that. I can't see it. It's not that I've lost faith. It's just that I'm starting to really start to question us a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about this game. Ultimately, if we're looking at it at the depth chart, it's a game we 100% should be winning, but I don't know if we will.
Ultimately, I think you guys will win this. Dallas is, well, for one, I heard Dak Prescott is on his way. He's already got his stitches out, on his way to making his way back. Could potentially be back next week. So that's big, but that could also be rushing him back too early. So I think, with Cooper Rush still winning, you let Cooper Rush take the wheel for right now and make sure Dak comes back healthy. But Cooper Rush, he's not the guy. He's not the truth.
I don't think he is either, but I don't trust him.
His luck has got to run out eventually. He's had 3 NFL starts, and all 3 has had game-winning drive. Actually, against the Giants, he didn't have a game-winning drive. They ended up taking, I think, a 10-point lead towards the end of the game. So not a game-winning drive, but at the end of the games, he has been coming in clutch. I think his luck is bound to run out eventually. And I mean, aside from Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, the Cowboys' defensive line isn't anything special. So, Leighton Vander Esch, he's more of a downhill backer. That's more of an issue, I would think, for Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick and potentially Brian Robinson. I mean, he was out running routes and catching passes before the Eagles game. So he looks like he should be coming back any week. I mean, that sounds like more of a running back thing because obviously he's going to be flying around the field east-west on the runs, but I wouldn't really be worried about him blitzing. Ultimately, I think you guys just outmatched the Cowboys, especially without Dak. They still have no receivers.
I did too, but I just, when you have a really horrible feeling about a game,
yeah,
I just have that with this. I can't explain it, and I know our division matchups have the potential to be very fluky, especially with the NFC East, and I just feel like it's going to be one of those.
I see what you're saying. And I mean, also just one last thing before we go on to the Eagles game is when you come off of a loss like that, like the Eagles, you don't want to be the team playing the team that got smoked the night before.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's either going to be like a kind of closest loss, kind of like the Giants game was. If we lose, it's going to be in that manner, but if we win, it's going to be a blowout.
So I wouldn't want to be Dallas. I think it'll be a good game. I wouldn't be too worried if I was you, ultimately.
I ultimately should be like feeling better about this game because if we look at it up and down, we showed that last week we have good run defense, in which I think that's right now that's the main weapon that the Cowboys have is Tony Pollard had 100 yards last week, although he should have had more because I lost my game by 0.3 points, and it's because of Tony Pollard. He should have just gotten one more carry. I'm still mad about that, but yeah, the Cowboys, they don't have the best wide receiver core in terms of depth. CeeDee Lamb is good, but I don't think he really fits the role that he's been given. Kind of like that Kendall Fuller doesn't really fit the role he's been giving in the past for cornerback. Looking at offense, if we're able to get the ball out fast, we should have too many weapons for the Cowboys defense to handle. Because I think if we're on our game, I think our offense has the potential to be a problem for any defense in the league because Curtis Samuel is like
he's showing out pretty well.
Yeah, he's like 16th in yards after catch, and he's had some big catches. He's shown that he could have a few run plays. Jahan Dotson is looking like an amazing route runner already, and Terry McLaurin is obviously, I think, a top 10 wide receiver in the league. So we should on paper, but I just have a bad feeling that this is going to be a fluky game. But if we do win, I think it's going to be by a large margin because I think the players are going to come out pissed and want to prove something. And I think hopefully it'll be at the expense of the Cowboys. I mean, I have a habit of being wrong. I think we've proven that over the past
year and a half.
Yeah, how long we've done this. If you look back at it, I have horrible track record, so hopefully this is added to that.
So, which Jahan Dotson had a rare drop in that game, a big one too. Would have put you guys in the red zone. So that was a rough one. I felt bad because I like Jahan Dotson.
I did too. I mean,
even watching
that's the only complaint.
You got to get that one.
That's the only complaint you can really have about him, though, because he has 3 touchdowns and 2 of them have been amazing catches, and all 3 of them have been amazing route running. Where it's just he's shown moves beyond his ears.
Now, we just started a new series that we're doing where on Tuesdays, so we do it on Tuesdays. I think we're gonna start streaming it eventually, but as of right now, it is just a recording put on YouTube. We are doing NFL whole wide predictions on scores of games and stuff. So you look there, I picked Washington, you picked Dallas. Are you keeping your same pick? All right. So stepping over to the Eagles game. This one, This is probably the game I'm most nervous about. Actually, I didn't like the Vikings game, but the
Well, I can
Jaguars look good this season.
understand that, but if you look at it up and down, yes, the Jags offense has been playing good this past week, but this is a game you should win because I think you have too many offensive weapons for them to ultimately deal with, and you have a strong front four, so that should
I
limit
think this
the rushing attack. And if you look and your secondary, like if you're able to pressure Trevor Lawrence, I think that's gonna be able to get you guys the win because I still think he's still developing.
I think this is the opposite of the thing you just described with the Commanders. Like you said, how the Commanders look like they should have a better on paper, they look like they should have a better team and they're just underperforming. I feel like this is the opposite where the Jaguars don't look like a great team on paper,
But
but
they're
they're
performing really
overperforming.
well.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Trevor Lawrence, former first overall pick, I expected him to come out and play well. And he's playing really well with Dougie Fresh. He's making his return to Philly, which should we place bets now? Is he going to get booed or cheered when he steps onto that field?
Is this even a question? He's going to get booed mercilessly. What are we talking about?
Really?
Yes.
I feel like
You're Eagles fans. Like you're
yeah, but
pretty
he still
merciless.
brought a Super Bowl. There's a statue outside of the link.
Y'all booed Santa.
Okay, but
Hello.
Santa didn't win us the Super Bowl. So
You
I,
brought
I'm
your ungrateful asses gifts. Don't even.
I'm thinking that
I think
I
it's
feel like it'll
probably
be
going to be
mixed,
mixed, but
honestly.
I think it's going to be more boos than cheers because of the last few years.
I think it'll be more cheers because he didn't really get a chance to have a terrible. He got fired after that 4-11-1 season, and that was it. Like it's not like they kept him after that season and then he had another bad season. It was that singular bad season and he was gone. So I
If we're
think
thinking about
ultimately,
this with level heads, then he probably shouldn't get booed. But
but Philly
be
isn't
honest
level
with
headed.
yourself.
Yeah,
Do the majority of Eagles fans have level heads? And if you say anything other
I
than
just said they
no,
don't. I just said they
yeah,
don't. So I'll be honest there. But yes, I feel like this is the opposite of the Commanders situation. The honestly, the biggest thing I'm worried about is more the dual threat of Travis Etienne, who hasn't put on the greatest showing this season, but
no. James
Travis Etienne
Robinson
and
has
James
been
Robinson, they're both
Robinson has
good.
been taking his carries because he's hit the last game he was averaging almost 6 yards a carry, and you simply can't ignore that.
I think James Robinson has proved like so in not last season, but the season prior, James Robinson, I believe he was a rookie. I believe he was undrafted, played pretty well that season. So, they kept him, held on to him for the next season. Well, then ATN tore his ACL last season. James Robinson's still proving that he's an NFL caliber running back. So I think
Yeah.
that injury ultimately hurt ATN's stock in Jacksonville. And maybe that's why James Robinson is getting as many chances as he is. But that's still a dangerous dual threat running back field. Their wide receivers, I'm really not that worried about.
No.
Marvin Jones Jr., Christian Kirk, and I
As
can't
long
really,
as you don't do what Washington did and put a linebacker on Christian Kirk, you should be fine.
which I believe as with Christian Kirk being as fast as he is, he's mostly going to be an outside receiver.
But
So
Travis Etienne has caught balls out of the backfield, so I think that's something when he's on the field you need to worry about. But if we're looking at this is a game. If we look up and down at the rosters, you just have a lot more in a lot more areas. If that makes any sense, my English wasn't the greatest
yes,
there, but
I know what you're saying.
you this is a game you should win.
Uh, so I agree. This is a game they should win, but obviously, sometimes that doesn't happen. I'm still keeping my pick. I mean, the Eagles
Yeah.
secondary is obviously should be highly favored in this matchup.
It's
I
shown
think
that
their wide
Justin
receivers,
Jefferson didn't have a great game, and like crunch time, they were able to shut down the Washington wide receiver core, and that's down to the fact that your front four is able to get a lot of penetration while only rushing four guys.
then also, I mean, another big part of this is the Eagles receivers against the Jaguars corners, which should be a insanely favorable matchup for
Yep.
the Eagles. So, I mean, ultimately, I think this should be an easy win for the Eagles, but I mean, it is the NFL and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately my last thing there. Anything else for you before we move on?
FedEx Field sucks.
All right. Well, with that note, let's
MLB.
go move on to baseball. And
The Phillies.
actually, one more thing I wanted to mention before we moved on was did you see the NFL is getting rid of the Pro Bowl?
I did, and I'm honestly kind of happy about that because ever since the Taylor hit on that punter, they don't play hard. The older games I liked. I mean, I still wish it was like this, where it's like it's an opportunity to play with the best against the best, and it's not that. It's just
which they're
there's
changing
no
it to,
defense, and it's just for me, it's almost just like a scrimmage.
well, so right now they're keeping the skills competition,
which I like.
I think the Kelsey brothers were talking about it on their podcast. I think they're going to do a flag football game, like 7-on-7, which
I remember they did they did that in the early 2000s. The early 2000s skill competition and late 90s was unmatched, especially if you're our age. Looking at it, like the quarterback accuracy challenges and all that, they're still fun to watch whenever they show them on ESPN, because they do every year. Go back and watch them. They are so fun, and I'm glad they're keeping that part.
Yeah, I think they should keep the skills competition, but I mean, like, I think they should keep. I like that there's some sort of game, so there's some reason to play. So even if it is just a 7-on-7 flag football game, I still think that'll be fun.
But it'll be fun, but I still think they're not going to play super hard because obviously you have to worry about injuries.
But look at it this way. If you are dressed in full pads and you are barely playing the game, it's totally different than playing in just flags and barely playing a game. Like, the amount of effort that you expect to see put out on the field with full pads on and the amount of effort you expect to see put out on the field with just flags, totally different. So,
and one thing I think they could do is have almost like a tournament. You have a few games and the ultimate winner gets like some kind of prize. I think you'll see some guys play harder.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just wanted to mention that because I think that's interesting, being that, the Pro Bowl is obviously.
I have an idea. Do you know what what the NHL does, where they have a team from each?
Yeah, the 3-on-3. That would be cool.
That would be cool if each of the divisions put together a little flag football team, like you have.
And they made a tournament. Yeah, that would be cool.
And then the ultimate winners get a prize. I think that could work.
Because I do like watching the NHL All-Star game stuff.
I still I do like watching it, but I still think it needs a little more defense. But that is better to watch than the NFL Pro Bowl has been the last few years.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that before we moved on. Now we can actually move on and talk about the Phillies' struggles going into the playoffs.
They need to be worried because the Brewers are 0.5 games back.
Yeah, the Brewers are stepping up. They've lost 4 straight up to this point now. They're playing right now.
This is the time to wake up.
Yes, I mean,
it's now.
You have 12, a little bit more than 12 games left. I'll pull it up real quick, but your time's coming. You're in crunch time now. They're
losing right now to the Cubs.
Yeah, they're losing right now to the Cubs as we speak. But I mean, dude, they're having trouble. They just can't seem to win any games right now. I mean, and it's not like the pitching's bad, because Aaron Nola came out. He pitched well, or not Aaron Nola. Zach Wheeler pitched against the Cubs in the start of this series. He pitched 6 innings, only gave up 1 hit and 1 run, I believe. So he pitched well. It's the offense that's struggling. Right now, Schwarber, in the last 15 games, Schwarber's batting 189 and Bryce Harper's batting 192. Those are 2
but
big
average doesn't matter.
I didn't say that. Average. I think average.
I'm making fun of the people that say, "Oh, average doesn't matter anymore. It's an outdated stat."
I think it still is a pretty, that's your percentage of getting bat on ball. I mean, that's still a pretty big stat. So, I mean, Harper and Schwarber both struggling right now. The other, Segura batting 240. That's not terrible. Real Muto and Bohm both bat. This is all in the last 15 games. All these batting averages. Bohm and Real Muto both north of 250. really the only two people who are standing out now. These might be a little bit Real Muto, Bohm, Harper, and Schwarber are every night players. Same with Segura. Those are every night players. So their averages might be in a tighter space than Matt Vierling and Brandon Marsh. Both of them are batting over 300.
Yeah, Brandon Marsh has actually been like a sneaky,
right
like
in
decent
his last
pickup.
in his last 15. Just take a guess at what his average is.
365.
That was pretty dang close. 362. He's
Crap.
he's playing really good
Damn it.
right now. Now, again, that could be, in a wider span when they were winning some games, and maybe that's even touching a bit before his injury, but because they haven't been every night players, but I mean, your every night players, you still need a little bit more out of it. They're struggling quite a bit.
I
Reese
think one of your
Hoskins is another guy he's still batting around 250, so it's not something you can really complain about.
But you don't really expect high average from Hoskins, though. That's just not his game.
Reese Hoskins was tops in the league last season in doubles. So
And yet, like he's not the kind of guy who's going to hit like 280, but when he puts the bat on the ball, it's going to do something. One thing I think is the problem with the Phillies is your wins are too inconsistent. You can find a few wins here and there, but you're not really able to put together like these good stretches. And I think that's part of your problem. And I think we're seeing that now is you're not winning often enough. And it's getting to a point where it's very dangerous because your players could obviously start to lose morale. And the Brewers are 0.5 games back. So it's pretty dangerous. And even if you do somehow manage to make it into the playoffs, you're going to want to do it on a series of wins. So you have the momentum going and you give yourself the best shot to win that 3-game series.
What's the they don't have it on this. So they have the elimination number on MLB, so I'll pull that up real quick. But like you said, I mean, the Brewers are only a half game back.
Yeah.
They're keeping it close, keeping it interesting. The Phillies could have been like 2 games away from putting them away at this point.
Yep.
If they had won some games. But I don't like they're struggling right now. They really need to step it up going into the playoffs. This is not the time that you want to cool down. Like
nope.
that's the thing about baseball is it's such a hot and cold sport that you can start out the season super hot and then just cool off at the end of the season or vice versa, but they cannot be getting as cold as they are right now.
I mean, like the team trajectories kind of look like a heartbeat sometimes, up, down, up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
Flat line.
So the Milwaukee's still 8 games away from being eliminated. Now, I don't know exactly how that's because I think if Philly
probably depends on if the Phillies win.
I was gonna say because I think it's very odd to try to calculate that as you go because I mean I think if Philadelphia wins and then Milwaukee loses that then gets rid of 2 games. So I don't entirely know the math behind it, but I know a couple days ago it said they were 7. So I don't know if with them winning then it's flipping, but
it's not as simple as just saying, oh, they're 8 games away from being eliminated. There's a bit more layers in it.
Yeah, there's some stuff behind it, but it's it is getting a little nerve-wracking. I mean, for the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about Phillies going on mini losing streaks, and I was saying, you know what, it is what it is. They'll get hot before the playoffs. But now that we're getting closer and closer,
counting on that.
Yeah,
you can't just keep saying, "Oh, we're gonna come in good when it matters." It matters right now.
But ultimately, I mean, the things that I have written down here is the Phillies. They're losing close games. That's an issue. Yesterday, Nola pitched well through 4 innings, and then in the 5th inning gave up 4 runs, and then pitched another shutout in the 6th inning. He had 8 strikeouts. The pitching is doing decent, aside from that one inning, which most of those runs came off of a single home run. But I mean, he needs to. The pitching isn't terrible. It's really the offense. Yesterday, they lost 4-2 against the Cubs. They went 2 for 16 with runners in scoring position, which for anyone who doesn't know means the runner on the second base bag or further. So second or third base, they went 2 for 16 with runners in scoring position. If you want to win games, you cannot be going 2 for 16. That is a terrible percentage for anything. So it's not what you want to see there. I mean, really, it's just hoping that this offense starts to heat up more.
Yeah,
I
but
think looking at it, I want to see Bohm maybe work a little bit more. I really like Bohm. Bohm has played well this season, and I think their issue is maybe they're trying to let him rest a little bit. But I mean, I think you just got to get the hot hands in there and let them stay. So,
yeah, going on to the Nats. I actually don't think this is the worst Nat season because CJ Abrams he just had a walk-off single. He showed that he's pretty good defensively, and he's shown improvement in his bat, which I like. I would like to see more from Josiah Gray. Hopefully we see that in the offseason. Mackenzie Gore, I think he's close to being able to get back in the MLB, but at this point I wouldn't pitch him this season because I simply don't think it's worth it.
Stay down and
and Joey Meneses is still crushing the ball. He has a 922 OPS. He's a 30-year-old rookie. He's still the best story out of the Nats. He's actually pretty fun to watch, and it's crazy to think if somebody were to tell me, hey, the most exciting thing about this season is going to be a 30-year-old rookie who has better hitting stats since the All-Star break than Juan Soto.
You would have been shocked.
Yeah, I would have said you're a liar. But yeah, we still have a lot of things to work on, but we've seen improvement from the rookies, and I think that's the most important thing to see from a young team, i.e. the Nationals or the Flyers. That's the best you can really hope for, and that's what we're seeing predominantly.
Bryson Stott, another guy in his last 15 games, 154 batting average.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
So I do, just to finish it up here, I do want to look at Castellanos's injury status and when he should be coming back, because I mean that's a big piece of offense missing.
He was actually doing pretty decent before his injury. Correct me if I'm wrong there. He was actually starting.
He was doing decent. Yeah, he was
turning
bats on balls. He wasn't hitting home runs like we signed him for, but he was still doing.
But maybe what you guys need is a player to get on base to give more your batters opportunities to drive in runs.
So it looks like he should be good because he isn't on the injury report.
Okay, so maybe he's returning soon. It's just a matter of when they want to do it.
But Edmundo Sosa, who was a guy who the Phillies got at the end of the trade deadline, he has been really good. He's out on 10-day IL right now with a grade 2 hamstring strain. That was September 17th. It said it could end his season, which, I mean, there's a change there because I think if you're winning and you get into the playoffs, you let him rest. Now that they're not really winning, I think this is something that you might want to bring him back for because he has been playing really well. So maybe you bring him back. And then also Brad Hand, which I know you love Brad Hand, but he is...
I'm not sure that's the right word.
He was placed on 15-day IL. So he's going to be out for a while with left elbow tendonitis, which again, I mean, not great being that's our bullpen there.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking at it, the bullpen hasn't really been terrible.
It's actually played a lot better than I thought they would.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that. And Brad Hand has actually not been Brad Hand. He's actually pitched decent.
Yeah, this hasn't, I mean, just looking at the scores, it looks like the pitching hasn't been terrible, aside from that 18-11 loss to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, you just need to forget about that. But Brad Hand has a sub-3 ERA.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately the pitching's doing decent. It's just the offense needs to step it up a little bit. I mean, this should be a potent offense. You should be
that's
at least 5 runs a game.
That's what your team is supposed to be built around, is this incredible offense that is supposed to be able to outscore any team, even despite their pitching.
But they go to Washington starting tomorrow.
Double header tomorrow.
So yeah, so they changed the they changed the schedule. So tomorrow's a doubleheader. I was supposed to be going to the game on Saturday, but I mean that could be an issue now because so the Saturday game at 1 o'clock is regularly scheduled as of right now. If it gets rained out, then they're moving it to Sunday night and they'll play a doubleheader on Sunday. They took that Saturday 7 o'clock game and moved it to Friday, and that's why there's a doubleheader tomorrow.
Oh,
On
is it
Friday.
because we're starting to get like the top part of Hurricane Ian?
Yeah, we're starting to get the hurricane. So, and apparently the rain is supposed to be the worst on Saturday. So that was supposed to be their fix. But I was told earlier that the rain's also supposed to be like this through Sunday and Monday too. So I don't know how much that's actually going to help. But other than that,
I got something to talk about.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about Aaron Judge? He broke the record, didn't he?
He tied it. He hit his 61st home run last night, and I just think that's really cool to see. I've said this before, but I'm a Yankees fan. I did get this from the 2009 World Series. That's when I started watching baseball. My first game was actually the 2009 Nats home opener against the defending champion Phillies. In 2009, so it was Nats, Yankees, and my third team is the Pirates because both sides of my family are actually from Pittsburgh, and I had a somewhat distant relative who actually played for the Pirates in the 50s. He played like a few games, but it's cool seeing Aaron Judge hit 61. We haven't seen anybody hit 60 since Barry Bonds in his record-breaking season, so I think that's really cool to see. And the Maris family was actually there, so hopefully he'll break it soon. And he should be the unanimous MVP, even if he doesn't get the triple crown, because the average is still going to be a little close. I think even over Ohtani, this season is one of the best offensive seasons I think we're ever going to see.
He's been putting up numbers, so which still blows my mind how he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna hit 50 again this year.
And his
so casually.
This is the literal definition of a perfect contract year.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, breaking records.
You will never be able to.
You're gonna have to re-sign him for. You're gonna have to give him a Patrick Mahomes contract, $50 million a year.
Yeah, but he's 30, but you're gonna have to give him a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Especially because he's proven that even getting into old age, he could still play.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen. I mean, recently, congrats to Albert Pujols. He hit 700 home runs, and he's in his 40s, and he's hitting 260 this season. So, I think we've started to see this trend in sports that it's possible to prolong your career into your 40s, especially because sports,
especially in baseball, because baseball. Yeah. Albert Pujols isn't playing defense. He's going into the batter's box.
Yeah, there's DHs now. You can plug in your old hitter at DH.
Yeah, so I mean, Nelson Cruz is another guy just like that. So I mean, especially with the universal DH now, that makes it a lot easier in baseball. You don't really see that in hockey. I mean, you saw Zdeno Chara just retired.
Yeah,
he was in his 40s. Yager, when he retired, he was in his 40s. You see
guys producing into their 30s though.
Yes, I think, like you said, the sports science is making it easier to prolong your career. But baseball definitely is one of the easier sports to be able to prolong your career like that, especially now with the universal DH.
Yeah, but back on Albert Pujols, he's going to retire for this season. I think it's going to be a pretty decent retirement season because in 300 at-bats and 77 hits, he's hitting 261s. With 21 homers and 58 RBIs. That's a pretty good RBI to hit ratio. And he has an 854 OPS. That is pretty impressive considering he's in his 40s.
Is that all you got for?
That's all I got for baseball.
All right. So we're going to close it out here and just talk a little bit about the preseason. Not really much to get into for preseason. I mean,
Dylan Strome had 2 goals last night. Same with, and Connor Brown had 1.
They played the Flyers too. But
yeah,
real quick, before we talk about that, I want to take a second to talk about our friends at Baumburger. It's a food truck out of Loudoun County. They are a new food truck opened by 2 of our friends that we went to school with, all from elementary school, all through high school. They just redid their burger recipe. So go ahead and try them out. They've now posted the schedule for the rest of the season, and they do catering. They're going all over Loudoun County, so they're expanding more. I will pull up just real quick. I'll talk about what they're going to do for the rest of September going into October. But if you guys want to check them out, they post their stuff on Instagram and Facebook and what they're going to do. So you guys should check them out. But September 30th, they're going to Fleetwood Winery from 4 to 9. October 1st, they are at Veramar Vineyards from 12 to 7. And October 7th through 9th, they are at the Waterford Fair. So go ahead, go check them out at some of those locations, and go ahead and contact them if you need catering or any of that stuff. So
they're doing it right. They're using the best ingredients. So really, please check them out.
Yeah, two hardworking kids, and I think it's a good thing to see. So, but with that, let's go into the NHL, talk a little bit about the preseason, which the Flyers are just playing their young guys right now.
And that's all you should really be doing.
They don't even, Tortorella isn't even coaching the team right now. It's Ian LaPerriere, who's coaching the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. He is coaching the team right now for, I think last night was his last game, because there's I think last night was his last game. And then this upcoming night, or their next game, game 4, is going to be the assistant coaches who are going to be under Tortorella. And then the last 2 Torts are going to coach himself. But just a couple notes from the earlier games. Morgan Frost, who's going into a contract year. This is really the make or break year of his career. He's on a one-year contract, but he's put on weight. He went 60% of faceoffs in his first game. So he looks like he's ready to make a year out of this year and try to get a renewal on his contract to keep on playing. And then really it's just the young guys. Noah Cates, he was a rookie last season, came up and played a little bit. He looks NHL ready, and him and his brother make quite the duo. They make each other better because they've been playing for so long. So they're 2 interesting guys to see. And then Tyson Forrester, who was a first-round pick, 5 shots in the first game they played, in the first preseason game. Same with Ronnie Adder, who's a defenseman. So 2 guys with heavy shots. Just a couple notes on those preseason games. I mean, this season looks like it's going to be hard for the Flyers. So one interesting thing is John Tortorella said in a press conference, quote, "I'm going to let the kids play." So he's shown that he's letting the young guys take over. And I mean, like we've said multiple times on here, it's just about seeing growth in the team. So that's all we're really looking forward to for the NHL. Anything from the Caps? I know you said Dylan Strom scored 2 yesterday, right?
Yeah, and Connor Brown also got a goal. That's what I was looking for from the team. Get a little bit younger and hopefully get like a little bit more of offensive production. That's all I can really ask for. If those guys are able to have great seasons, then I think we can get back to becoming a serious contender. I mean, we'll make the playoffs. I think we still have that within us, but yeah, that's good signs.
So close it out, because I think that's it for you, right?
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. So to close it out, I did want to mention that we are going to start again, that we're going to do the NFL wide week to week game predictions. It's going to be more of a competition. We're going to keep our records.
Yeah.
We did just start it this week. So we're not going to have the full season, but we did just start it this week. So that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to, and I enjoy doing, just because it expands it a little bit past Washington and Philly. So that's going to be fun to do. And then if you guys want to check us out on Instagram, TikTok, both at BL in the DC, you can email us at blinthedc@gmail.com, questions, comments, all that stuff. You guys can rate and review us on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, I believe that's it. So we will see you guys next week.
See you later.